In the last lecture, we learned about the basic concepts related to map data structure, like how to create a map and how to add entries to a map using set method. We also learned how to retrieve the value for a key from a map. So in the last lecture, we learned that in order to create a map, we use new keyword followed by map constructor. And this will return us a new map. We can go ahead and we can store it in a variable and we can call it maybe my map. Okay, you can name this variable anything. So here it is going to create an empty map. If I go ahead and if I log it in the console, and if I save the changes, you will see that an empty map has been logged where the size of the map is 0. That means this map does not have any entries. And we learned that in order to add new entries to a map, on the map, we can call set method. To this set method, we need to pass a key, for example, message, and then a value for that key. For example, hello world. Okay, and remember that in a map, a key can be of any data type. Here, we are using a string value as a key, but a key can also be a numeric value, Boolean value, object, symbol, anything. Okay, so now if I save the changes, you will see that now this map has one entry where the key is message and the value is hello world. In the same way, let me go ahead and let me add another entry using the set method. Here, let's say the key is price and the value is 100. If I save the changes, now you will see that in this map, we have two entries. For the second entry, the key is price and the value is 100. So in this way, we can use set method to add new entries to a map after we have created the map. And we have also learned that this set method, after adding the entry, it returns the updated map. So we can also chain these set methods together, because every time the set method will be called, it will add a new entry to the map and then it will return the updated map. And on that updated map, we can again call another set method to add another entry, and that set method will again return us the updated map with all the existing entries and new entry. And because of that, we can also change set method on the result of the previous set method. So we already know this from our previous lectures. Now it is also possible to create maps from an array. Now, when you want to create a map from an array, the elements of that array should be nested array. So for example, here if you see, we have this address array, and in this address array we have some nested arrays. Each nested array has two elements. This is the first element, this is the second element. Then here for the second nested array, country is the first element and UK is the second element. For the third nested array, zip is the first element and this value is its second element. So here we can pass this type of array to a map method in order to create a map from that array. But the structure should be like this. We should have an array, and in that array we should have nested arrays. Okay, so from that nested array, what map will do is it will use the first element as the key and the second element as the value. So for example, if I pass address array here to this map, and if we save the changes, you will see that it has created a new map where we have 4 entries. In this address array, we have 4 elements, 4 nested arrays. So using that, this new map constructor has created a new map where we have 4 entries. The first element of each nested array is the key, as you can see, and the second element of each nested array is being used as a value. So in this way, you can also create a map from an array, but that array should have nested arrays as its element. Now what if some of the nested arrays have some extra element? For example, here let me add one more element, 1, 2, 3. If I save the changes now and if I expand this, it has not made any difference, because this map constructor will only use first two values. The first value will be used for key and the second value will be used for value, and rest other values will be ignored. Now what if we have a single element in an array, in the nested array? Let's see what happens in that case. So for the third nested array, I have removed the second element. If I save the changes and if I expand this, you will see that we still have the entry where the key is zip. So zip is being used as the key, but since we do not have any second element in this nested array, the value for that is set to undefined. Now what if we don't have any element at all? In this case, let's see what happens. So if I save the changes, we still have 4 entries. If I expand this, you see the third entry is undefined, undefined. That means the key is undefined because we do not have any first element here. So undefined will be the key. And since we do not have any second element also, the value for that key will also be undefined. Okay, so here let me get back the first and second element. Let's save the changes. Now let me do one more thing. Let me create an array. So let's simply call it as ARR. And here, let me go ahead and let me add some elements. For example, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now let's pass this ARR to this new map constructor. And let's see what happens in this case. If I save the changes, you see we have this error. And it says iterator value 1 is not an entry object. So basically, this map here, it is expecting an iterator. So this one, it is not an iterator. This nested array, it is an iterator, right? But this value 1, it is not an iterator. And that's why we have got this error. So that's why I said that if you want to create a map from an array, then that array should have nested arrays as its element. All right, let's pass this address array here. So here we learned how to create a map from an array. Okay, let me comment this here. And before that, let me first copy it and then let me comment it. And let me paste that copied code here. Now we are going to learn how we can create a map from an object. Now there is no direct way of creating a map from an object. But what we can do is, to this map, we can pass this object in this array form. Now you might ask, how can we create an array like this from an object? Well, if you remember, we have learned about object.entries method. And the object.entries method returns us an array of arrays, right? And in the nested arrays, the property of the object will be the first element and the value of that property will be the second element. Let me actually show you that. So here I'm going to use object.entries, and to this, let's pass this user object. Okay, and for now, let me also comment this map, and let's also comment this console.log statement to avoid any errors. All right, now here I'm going to store the result which this object.entries will return into a variable, and I'll call it as obj array. You can name it anything. And if I go ahead and if I log this obj array, and if I save the changes, you see this object has 3 properties. So this entries method, what it has done is, from this object, it has created an array. You see, it has returned us an array. And in that array, we have some nested arrays. And in the nested array, the first element is the property name from this user object. And the second element is the value for that property. For the second property also, you will see the property name is age. So the first element of the second nested array is age. And its second element is the value of the age property. And same is true for gender property also. So in this third nested array, we have gender as the first element and the value for that gender as the second element. So using this object.entries, we have converted this user object into an array like this, where we have an array and the elements of that array are nested arrays. So this structure is similar to what the map constructor expects, right? So now let me uncomment this line and also this line. And now to this map method, we are going to pass this obj array. Okay. And here, let me comment this console.log statement. If I save the changes, you see we have a map with 3 elements, and the property of this user object is the key. Name, age, and gender is the key. and the value for those properties are the value for each of these keys. So in this way, in order to create a map from an object, first we can use the object.entries to create an array from that object, and then we can pass that array to this map constructor in order to create a map. So here we cannot directly create a map from an object, but we can use object.entries to create an array from that object, and that array can be passed to this map constructor to create a map. Alright, so here we learned how we can create a map from an array and also how we can create a map from an object. Now, as I mentioned before, we cannot directly create a map from an object. So first we convert it to an array, and then from that array, we create a map. Now, it is also possible to create an array from a map. Let's see how we can do that. So here, let me go ahead and let me comment all this code. Let's save the changes. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new map. I'll call it as user map. And to create a new map, we use new keyword followed by map constructor. Okay, now let me go ahead and let me add some entries for this user map. So for that, I'm going to use the set method. So here I'm going to have a name key, and for that, the value is going to be mark. Then I'm going to chain another set method on the result of previous set. Here I'm going to create an age key, and the value for that key is going to be 23. Then on that, I'm going to call another set method. I'm going to specify gender key, and for that the value is going to be a string value male. And let me add one more set. So this time the key is going to be city, and the value for that key is going to be London. Right, now let's go ahead and let's log this user map in the console. If I save the changes, you will see that a map has been logged, and in that map we have 4 entries. This name, age, gender, and city are the keys, and these are the value for those keys. Now what we want is, from this map, we want to create an array. And to create an array, we are going to make use of spread operator. We have learned that we can use spread operator on any iterable in order to extract its elements. So since a map is also an iterable, on that map, in this case on this user map, we can go ahead and we can call spread operator, something like this. And actually, let me show you what happens if I log this. So if I save the changes, you will see that it has extracted all the elements from this user map. So this is the first element, this is the second element, this is the third element, and this is the fourth element. Okay, it has extracted all these elements, and these are now individual elements. Okay, they are logged one after the other, but they are individual elements, and these elements are nothing but arrays. Okay, so this is the first array which has been logged. So from this user map, what this spread operator has done is it has extracted each key value pair, and those key value pairs are basically the elements of an array. So this here, it is the first extracted value, this here is the second extracted value, this here is the third extracted value, and this here is the fourth extracted value. And here this spread operator has extracted arrays because in a map we don't have independent values. We have values in the form of key value pair. So if it is going to extract some data from a map, it is going to extract both key and value. And to group them together as a single value, it is returning us an array with the key and the value. I hope you got the point. So using the spread operator, we are able to extract each key value pair from the map. Now we want that key value pair to be an element of an array, because from this map we want to create an array. So all we have to do is we have to wrap this complete expression within square brackets. So now these individual elements will become an element of this outer array, which will be created by this opening and closing square bracket. So now if I save the changes, it should log an array, as you can see. And in that array, we have 4 elements, and all these elements are basically nested arrays. And in these nested arrays, we have the key of the map as the first element, and the value of that key as the second element. All right, so this is how we can create an array from a map using the spread operator on the map. Now, what if from the map you want to get an array with only keys from the map? That is very simple. Let me copy this line and let me paste it here. And now we want to get an array from this user map where we only want to have the keys from the user map. So for that, on this user map, you can go ahead and you can use keys method. And if I save the changes, you will see that now it has returned us an array. And in that array, we have all the keys from this user map. In the same way, if you want to get all the values from a map, then instead of keys, you can use values. If I save the changes, you see now it is returning us an array with all the values from this user map. And just like keys and values, we also have another method called entries, and it will return us the same result which this expression has returned us. So here I can also go ahead and I can use entries, and if I save the changes, you see this result, this result which we have got from this expression and this result which we have got from this expression, both are same. All right, so this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.